everybody, hope you're doing marvelously well. As ever, please subscribe, hit the notification bell, and of course you'll be notified when we have a new video. So in this week's Frequently Asked Questions, otherwise known as FAQ Friday, I say that because people like me to say that because apparently it sounds like a bad word. I have no idea what they mean. Anyway, in today's Frequently Asked Questioned Friday, we're going to go through some fun ones. There's a lot this week about the business side, if you like. So let's touch into that. How do you prevent yourself from burning out creatively and physically while working with artists every day? Wow, that's a huge question, and one I get asked about a million times. Here I am, look, I haven't done anything with my hair for about 3 weeks, so I look kind of like a walking disaster. But that's quite all right. It's not that much of an indication of how busy I am. No, wait, there it is. Look, the reality is if you love this, which is the only reason to be in music, the only reason, do not get into the music industry if you want to make lots of money. You have to love this and then make money as a consequence out of the hard work and the passion that you bring to this. There is no flick of the switch and suddenly you're super, super rich. Even the guys that I do know that got successful early on, very few of them were able to sustain careers because their success may have been their attachment to a very, very talented artist who then didn't use them anymore. And so suddenly they're left having to fend for themselves and maybe their talents are about this much when they need to be this much. So the reality is that you need to be doing this because you love it. The question's a great question, but first of all, make sure that you answer that question that I'm asking you first. Do you really love the music industry? Do you love music, first of all? Because the music industry is hard work, but music, you have to love it. Okay, if you do, then how do you prevent yourself getting burned out? Well, I do lots of things, and I basically stagger them and layer them, and I don't just sit in a room for 12 hours a day on one song. If I did that, I would get burned out. When you hear me continually talk about when you're mixing, taking breaks, I mean it. Take breaks. All of the great guys take breaks, they move fast, and they move focused. I've seen a video with somebody talking about, oh, it's rubbish to move fast. It isn't. You should be able to stand back and make judgments and teach yourself that. Now, obviously, there's going to be times where you're stuck in the weeds trying to figure out how to use a plugin in a certain series, try to decipher one of my videos on sidechaining or something like that. I know there's going to be times you're going to be messing around with that kind of stuff, but ultimately, you need to take breaks when you're mixing in particular and just get away from it, do something else for 5-10 minutes, answer some emails, come back and listen and see where you're at. Try to always look at it as a whole. And then, and only then, if you're doing that, will you be able to hear the issues in mixing. I'm not saying try to mix a song in 5 minutes. No, that's not what I'm saying. I'm just saying take breaks and don't get carried away with something for so long because you can end up leading yourself down a garden path. Take a break, walk away from it, come back 5-10 minutes later, and you'll hear where you're at. So that's the number one way I don't get burned out. I don't obsess over something. If I'm working with an artist, I will be very focused. I will have a lyric sheet. Or I'll know the song really, really well, and I'll know after 3 or 4 or 5 takes whether we have it or not and where to focus. But I would suggest you having a lyric sheet. That way, you're not doing vocals for 15 hours a day, burning out the singer, frying your brain listening to all these things. It's like you're focusing your energies. It's all about focusing your energies. But we have days, don't we, Eric, where we work with 3 clients and we film a video and we recall a mix. So it's times when it's just absolutely insane with the amount of work that we do. However, if we're not like so in something for like 15 hours that our heads are going to explode, it's actually easier to do multiple things and just focus on the task at hand. I like the variety. It works for me. The hardest albums I've had to make, which have also been successful, are like the second Frey record was very hard to make. It was 9 months because we had pre-production phase, we had them writing in the studio, and it was very arduous. It was 12 to 15 hours a day, 6 to 7 days a week, away from my family, and just hearing, the drummer's perspective, the bass players, the guitar players, the vocal piano player, the other guitar player, Flynn and everybody's opinions, and pulling it all together. Because I was just sitting there at Pro Tools, at the API 1608 console, just recording and funneling all this information. And that is a lot of work because you're just doing one thing and there's a lot of people coming at you. It was also a lot of work because it was 9 months. But it was a huge album, did really, really well, so it was worth it. Everybody did very well out of it. So the point is that when you have variety and you move quickly through things and you're focused, if you're focused on the task at hand, it's not going to be as exhausting as it is when 50 things are coming at you about one song. Try to create some boundaries and focus. This is funny. Number 2. Hi, Warren. Where do you get all your energy? LOL. Where do I get all my energy? I answered it really pretty much at the beginning of the last one. I love doing this. I love music. I do music because when I was a kid, I put a pair of headphones on and I listened to A Night at the Opera by Queen. My dad bought it for me for Christmas. I was super young. He bought it for me. I put on my headphones and I was hooked. Instantly, I wanted to be Brian May. I wanted to be in a band. It was the best thing I'd ever heard, and it still is. I absolutely freaking love that record. I love that band, but I love the inspiration of music that's that good. It's no accident, strangely enough, one of my famous tangents, that currently Queen are the #1 legacy artist on Spotify. They have more plays per day than Michael Jackson, Led Zeppelin, and the Beatles. It's those big, big songs, things, and just the variety, whether it be Bohemian Rhapsody, We Are the Champions, We Will Rock You. The point is like, that's where I get it from. I get it from that love. I've got this untapped well, this sort of just enthusiasm based around that memory. I feel like I am, for a man that doesn't drink or smoke, I am a musical junkie. I'm a total musical junkie. I basically remember that day, every single day, when I put those headphones on and my hair stood on end and I was a little kid, very, very young, and I was so inspired and I just want to recreate that every day. Like a junkie chasing a fix, I'm chasing that feeling every single day. So that's where it comes from. That's where my energy comes from. How do you manage time when recording an album? Do you give the artist a number of days in the studio, and what if they need more or less time? What a fantastic question. I do occasionally go over budget, either A, in expense, or B, in time, but rarely. Rarely because I've been doing this so long that when an independent artist sends me some songs, I know what I've got to do to get it great. I know that are they an instrumentalist as well, or are I just a singer? Therefore, if they're just singing on it, and maybe just playing acoustic guitar, then I'm going to bring in other musicians and maybe myself. Maybe I'll play drums on it, bass, guitar, piano. When it's stuff like that, like I did with Caden's last EP, there's quite a few songs where I play all the instruments. And it meant that for a day, we could track a couple of songs because I'm playing the drums, I'm playing the piano, I'm playing whatever, I can play all the instruments. Not hiring another musician, and it's easy. So, but if it's a band, and I've got to do a bit of pre-production, and I'm going to add some days for pre-production. I'm going to be in the studio. I'm going to allow a little bit more of that band relationship when you've got 3, 4, 5 people in one room, all quote unquote discussing, sometimes arguing. When you've got a more intense situation with musicians like that, then you should probably allow a little bit more time. So my experience has taught me that every single job I do, I have a lot of experience to back up how long it's going to take, how much it's going to cost, who I'm going to need, who I'm not going to need. And I always lay it clearly out in front before I take on any project to see if the artist is happy with my suggestions. So ultimately, I know what I'm doing when I go in. And then, as I was saying earlier, it's all about maintaining focus. If you're wasting a lot of time on something, move on to something else, especially if you're doing an EP or an album. You have multiple things you can do. You're doing acoustic guitars. The guitar player's been playing for 2 hours. His fingers are really sore. The action's super high. The strings are heavy on his guitar that he's insisting on playing. Give him a break. If he doesn't want to play your lighter actioned Yamaha acoustic, if he doesn't want to do that, then give him a break. Go and do some tambourine overdubs. Do some backgrounds. Do something different. The point is like multiple skill set. I get debated all the time by people on the right way to record. You know what? There is no right way. The best way to record is knowing every single version you can think of, whether it be using virtual instruments or recording choirs, orchestras, three-piece bands, live bands, overdub. If you know all of these different skill sets, you'll be able to cover those eventualities. So watch a ton of videos that we've done, go through some stuff, download some files to mix, just get really good at your job, and that stuff will come easy to you. How do you turn down an artist or a band you don't want to work with? Well, that's easy. I'm always busy. So if I don't want to work with somebody, I just say I'm too busy. But sometimes I am too busy and they have a specific time frame they want to do it and it just doesn't work out. Nobody's holding a gun to your head. If you don't want to do the gig, just don't do the gig. I've had artists that have been very easy to work with and I've courted them to come back in. And there are other artists that are difficult to work with and then they might still want to work with me, but I make no effort to chase them down. You get artists you love, easy to work with, incredible results. You get artists that are really difficult to work with. The results are a compromise and they're not as good as you want them to be. Those are the kinds of artists that either I'm A, too busy to work with, or B, I'm certainly not chasing them up for more work. How much time should we be spending on mixing a song or an album? Wow, so this is a great question because it kind of ties into one of the first ones. You just need to move quickly, and I don't mean rushed. Quickly does not mean rushing. It just means like taking the appropriate amount of time, and if you're messing around with something and you're not hearing a major difference, then walk away from it and do something else, because your ears get ineffectual at the end of the day. They do. I have great pitch. Early on in the day, I'm picking up the chord sequence, the melodies, whatever. By about 9 o'clock, I'm all like, huh, what was that? They're like, that was a C major. Oh yeah, C. Like, I could hear a C major in the morning from the first nanosecond. But by the end of the day, I get tired. I might not be physically exhausted as such, but I'm not as sharp as I want to be. So pace yourself during the day, listen to stuff, work on it when you're mixing, but don't be afraid to move on to something else. In this modern world of mixing in the box, it's so easy these days to mix in the box. It really is. Now you can mix in it, you can close down, open up something else, blump, 2 minutes time, it's open, you're changing it, save it under a different name so you can reference it, go to a different mix. I mean, so many guys I know now that mixing albums, they'll mix a song, they'll create a template of what they like about it, import it into the second song, start mixing that, find something else that improves, go back to that first song, tweak that, and before you know it, they're doing this and they're applying settings through the songs. They get to the end of the album, they've got something quite remarkably good, but they've been able to move backwards and forwards through multiple songs. So don't get precious with yourself. Don't feel like you have to solve every problem immediately. If you're not hearing the issue, maybe your ears are fatigued, or maybe you're just annoyed by it and emotionally too attached to it. So close down the song, take a break, open up something different, work on something different. I have a full-time job. How many hours should I be spending mixing, recording, playing daily? How do people squeeze this into their days without being exhausted? I feel for you. It is really difficult to have a full-time job and devote the enormous amount of time that we want to this job, because this job is, for so many of us, for especially the people who produce like a pro, you are so amazing. What an incredibly marvelous community this is. Everybody is so supportive. The amount of trolls we get is so minimal. It is just about people helping each other out. We have a great community here. We're very, very blessed. Come to the Academy. That's a great place if you want, because there's tons of multi-tracks to download. And also there's many, many, many people in there that also have full-time jobs. So what do I suggest? I suggest just pacing yourself. If you're married with kids, you've got to have time for your family, however brief. It's better to have time with your family than it is to have a resentment, either, of not having enough time. Or you just don't want that. You want to have a good quality of life. So just make sure that if you do get an hour or two a day to work on it, just make sure that you get that hour or two. Don't put yourself into a situation where the phone's going to be ringing and 15 different things are going to be happening. Try to allot an hour or two just to concentrate on making or recording or mixing music. It's a wonderful thing to do. We are blessed to be able to do this, so enjoy the process. If you've got that focused hour or two and you're enjoying it and you're putting some time in there, and it's going to be really rewarding, and it's going to be a lot better than spending 6, 8, 9, 10, 12 hours pulling your hair out. So it's not always about the quantity. It is always definitely about the quality. All right, thank you ever so much for watching. This is an incredible community once again. Please leave a bunch of comments and questions below. I'd love to know, firstly, I'd love to know your thoughts on all of these, but also what was your passion? What was the thing that made you want to do music? For me, I've identified it my whole life. Putting on a pair of Sony headphones and hearing on my parents' Sony hi-fi and listening to A Night at the Opera. That was it. I can remember that moment vividly, and I was a little kid. What was your moment? Why did you get into the music industry? All right, have a marvelous time recording and mixing. I'll speak to you all again soon. Thank you ever so much.